Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another New Jersey Constitutional Republican virtual conversation. Once again, it's great to have our good friend from Tennessee running for the state Senate in Tennessee, Mr. John Gentry. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing good, sir. Thank you for having me on again.
Well, it's great to be with you. And we want to talk to you about really a movement that you're leading, not only in Tennessee, but really throughout the country, John. And I want to read the First Amendment for our audience. It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And John, you've made it you've brought this last clause, the fifth clause, if you will, the right petition to the government for redress of grievances back into the public's conscience, if you will. And talk to us about why you think that would help us with the present catastrophe crisis that we have in the country with law enforcement and all the other aberrations that have occurred through the judicial system. So tell us a little bit more about the right to petition the government for redress of grievances.
Well, what has happened since the Civil War, this right has been actively oppressed. And the fact that nobody knows what that means to petition for redress of grievance is prima facie evidence that the government has oppressed this right. Now, what you read is the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. And the fact that it is in the First Amendment renders it, right up there with free speech and freedom of religion. It's one of our most important constitutional rights, and it's our most powerful constitutional right. It is more powerful than the right to bear arms or the right of free speech when it comes to a wrongful government. Because a grievance is, Black's Law Dictionary definition is discrimination or oppression of a constitutionally protected right. And this is how we protest government that enacts statute that is in contradiction of our state or federal constitutions, is to protest that, to seek petition of redress of grievance. I have a grievance. You're trying to enact, or you have enacted something that is repugnant to our federal or state constitution. So I'm working very hard in Tennessee. I'm the first person to file a petition received and recorded in the journals of both houses since the year 1850. And the fact that it has not happened in 170 years is more evidence that the right is oppressed and the people don't know how to use that right or exercise that right, because our school system fails to teach basic civics of what this constitutional right is, and further repression by not educating us. Mine is also the first demanding reform, I think, in the history of this nation, asserting my unalienable, indefeasible right to reform the government who is acting in violation of the Tennessee and federal constitutions. So the biggest part of my work about is to restore this constitutional right, because it literally fixes everything that is wrong in our nation. So when we look at term limits, there are probably 95% of the citizenry, if not more, would like to see term limits in the United States Congress. But no matter who we elect, we never see term limits put in place. And if the people of this nation got together and 80% of us, hundreds of millions of American citizens, signed a petition and presented it to the Congress and said, we're not asking, we're telling you that we want term limits. That's the power of this constitutional right. When you have 80% of the citizenry going to the United States Congress or more and saying, we want term limits, for them to not do that is evidence of a government that is no longer Republican in character and representative of its people. When you have that many that want something like a term limit. And when we look at the George Floyd murder, that police officer that murdered him, that was not the first time that he oppressed and engaged in police brutality. You can be certain of that. Police officers do not start their jobs corrupt. I mean, maybe there's the rare occasion, but police officers generally start out, they're good kids that want to protect the community. And that conduct exacerbates and gets worse and worse over time. Now, the first time that happened, if a citizen knew that they had this right to petition for redress of grievance, hey, this cop just roughed me up. And they go, up the level. They start with the supervisor, and when they fail to get redress, they keep stepping and get up until they eventually get to the General Assembly. And if they can present proof, look at this video. This cop just beat me senseless, and I was handcuffed. And the General Assembly takes no action, that will cause public outrage, and they won't get elected again. So this right is more powerful than the right to bear arms. Perfect example. I filed a remonstrance demanding reform of the judiciary. Now, if I exercised my right to bear arms and geared up, and I was a 4th Recon Marine for 8 years, I'm a warrior. I know how to fight. I know how to fight hard. If I'd have geared up and gone to the General Assembly, with an M16 or AR-15 and body armor and several magazines, they would have hauled me away. And I would be labeled in the media as a lunatic. But as a single man remonstrating to my government, exercising my First Amendment, as well as my tennis, that right is in the state constitutions also. And instead, they reconstituted the Board of Judicial Conduct and got rid of some bad people. And that was just one citizen that did that. Now imagine, so how this right is exercised. On an individual basis, as a citizen, you can do a private petition and say, I have a grievance. This judge violated my rights. This law enforcement officer engaged in police brutality or denied me due process. This child protective service worker stole my children under color of law. Whatever the case, I have a grievance. And here are the facts. It was wrong, and I want redress. And that redress is not the perversion of our courts that we see with class action lawsuits that I want millions of dollars from the state. Redress may be firing that cop so that he doesn't do it again, or impeaching that judge. It may be, if you suffered personal harm and lost a couple of months' pay, maybe it's about making you whole. It's redress. It's not about damages that we see with the perversion of our courts.
Civil court.
It's redress. It's making you whole again, making things right. It may even just be an apology. We're sorry, we won't do it again. So there are private petitions for redress of grievance. There are remonstrances, a memorial and a remonstrance. And that a memorial is a statement of facts, and a remonstrance is a protest against unlawful conduct of government that is acting in violation of the Constitution. And so you get together a group of people and say, the Constitution says that the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. You have enacted these statutes that are unlawful. And you get a whole bunch of people. And the power of that is a citizen or a member of the body will address the full body and say, we have, and this is in the houses from the 1831 House Journal I showed you on the last talk that we had, that, a large number of citizens have filed a petition wanting this or protesting this. And you get as many signatures on it as you can. This is not a petition. This is a lawful document with co-remonstrances, just as you would have co-plaintiffs in a court. Or you can petition the government, which is seeking favor. So there's 3 aspects to this. There's protest of unlawful government by remonstrance. There's a petition for redress of grievance if you have been wronged by the government or by a government official. And then there's a petition seeking favor. And that might be, we want a road built from this town to this town, or an expressway in today's terms. Or we think it would be a good idea to enact a statute or something. Rather than going to a member and saying, I want a bill, you get a bunch of people that actually get to address the body and present a bill just as members present bills. It is the voice and the power of the people to participate in our government. And that's what a government of the people, by the people, and for the people is, and why this right is fundamental, and why we must all unite in this country to restore this powerful constitutional right.
Okay, very good, John. Let me ask you this question. First of all, let me say that the New Jersey Constitution, Article 1, under rights and privileges, Section 18 states, quote, the people have the right freely to assemble together, to consult for the common good, to make known their opinions to their representatives, and to petition to redress of grievances. Okay, so we see that's within our New Jersey Constitution. Now, here's the question, John, and I would like for you to go through this step by step. Myself and thousands of other New Jerseyans, we have, in order to carry our firearms outside of our homes, we have to get justifiable need permission, a justifiable need permit, which is an arbitrary decision based upon whether you really need it or not. It's a clear unconstitutional infraction on our Second Amendment rights. So myself and 1,000 others who want to carry their firearms outside of the home, we are going to start a petition for redress of grievances. So what does that look like? We all get together, we sign the petition, then we get one particular member of the assembly to bring it forth. Would that be the next step? Guide us through the steps we need to do to get our Second Amendment right to carry firearms in New Jersey. What would that look like?
So the first thing is the proper nomenclature. And I would title this document a memorial and a remonstrance. And here's the facts. The United States Constitution says that the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. And I would look to your state constitution, because all the state constitutions also have a right to bear arms stated in them. And Tennessee's constitution, being the least imperfect and the most Republican, says that citizens have a right to bear arms, but that the legislature may pass law with regarding the carrying of arms with a view to prevent crime. So under the Tennessee Constitution, they are limited to legislating with a view to prevent crime, and only with the wearing of arms publicly. So I would look at, what does the New Jersey Constitution say about it? And then the federal Constitution is clear, shall not be infringed. And so, right. And under the supremacy clause, the federal Constitution is supreme to whatever's in the New Jersey Constitution.
Article 6.
So here's how that process works: is you do a memorial and a remonstrance. Here's the facts. Constitution says shall not be infringed. Argument, what infringed means, and you're infringing on it. And then the redress that you want, and you must be very specific in the redress that you want. I want this statute repealed or amended, or just made void. If it's unlawful, if it's unconstitutional, then a statute is not voidable, it's void. It's not something to be repealed. If it's unconstitutional, it's void. Then get as many signatures as you can, and you approach a member of the House and say, we have a large number of people here. We have 10,000 people that we want to approach the General Assembly. Now you can choose. You can choose to do this by address. And by address, you can choose a spokesperson to address them, or you can trust in the member to present your case to the body and he can do it. Or thirdly, you do it as a written remonstrance, but you specify that in your document. You say, we want to address the General Assembly. And in the House Rules of Order here in Tennessee, and this is another piece you need to look at, and I don't know New Jersey, but you need to look in your Rules of Order. And in Tennessee, our Rule 15 says, before any petition or memorial addressed to the House shall be received and read at the table, a brief statement of the contents of the petition or memorial shall be filed with the chief clerk. So you have to go look at your New Jersey General Assembly, House of Representatives Rules of Order and see what they say about how petitions are presented. And so you go to a member and you say, we want to talk about this statute that infringes in violation of the federal Constitution. We want to address the body, or we're presenting you with this written remonstrance. Now, in my rule, it says petitions shall be received and read at the table. And so you would prepare that remonstrance, and shall creates a duty for them, and they shall receive and read that petition at the table. If you cannot find a member, then you just go to your specific district representative. And if he refuses to do it, then you do a petition for writ of mandamus against him and carry that through the court system and ask the court to order him to perform his duty. I can tell you, many states now, because of the work that I'm doing, are starting to receive petitions and remonstrances. But many states are oppressing this right, and they will not uphold it. They are very afraid. I mean, it is clear we have a right to petition for redress of grievance, but they won't even file them with the clerk. And now, if it's insulting, if it's vulgar, of course, it's not appropriate to file it with the clerk. And the House, it's Rule 12 in the United States Congress. In the House Rules of Order, Rule number 12 for the United States Congress, it reads that members have a duty to file petitions with the clerk, and then the Speaker will assign it to a committee for deliberation. So this right exists not only at the state level, but also at the federal level. And the next steps that I'm taking with this process here in Tennessee, if I can't get the Tennessee Court of Appeals or the Tennessee Supreme Court to uphold my right, then I'm going to the President of the United States and to the United States Congress in memorial and remonstrance under Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, that my state government is no longer of character or form. And for other states that have sought the same process and exhausted all state remedy as I have, then I want all of us from all 50 states to come together and go to the United States Congress and say, explain yourselves. We have a guarantee of a Republican form of government in Article 4. And please explain to us what that guarantee means. And how are you going to restore a Republican government for me? And when we have people from across the country doing this, and as you have thousands of people sign these petitions, now you have thousands of citizens who have learned and exercised their right. And with thousands of people knowing now that that right is oppressed, we cause outrage in public opinion. And it is through that outrage that we will cause action, and that people will start voting out or actively taking down these members, not taking down violently, but taking down, these members who are not upholding their oaths and who are part of a government that's wrongful in character or form.
Very good. And also, John, the people can get the information about what is going on and what you're doing at we the people the 50 states.com, correct? Is that the website?
Yeah, we the people the50.com is my website, and I've got a lot of material on there, as well as my YouTube channel and my social media, my Facebook page and Twitter. You can find through my website. All the social media pages are linked on there. And I've got a lot of videos. I have one video on YouTube. It's called Paid For in Blood, Betrayed and Must Be Restored. And that goes back to it starts at the 12th century and goes through the whole history of this right. And I show how it's actively oppressed by the government in that video. So if you want to learn about the
and
right,
I think,
go ahead.
yes. We want to use these resources. A lot of this information people have never heard of. Really, John, until I became friends with you, I was not aware of it as well. So I'm learning a lot from you. And we in New Jersey need to look at this very seriously. We need to unify. We need to get petitions together and redress the various grievances that we have. And of course, the justifiable needs statute is one of them. Also, the fact that many people have been terribly affected by the shutdown and they haven't been able to run their businesses. And many people are in dire straits economically because of the governor's arbitrary decision. When what he essentially did was say that there are non-essential and that there are essential businesses, and picking and choosing. Of course, this is a complete violation of our rights. One of the things that one of the statutes or one of the sections rather that we just read in the New Jersey Constitution was the fact that the people in Section 18 have the right to freely assemble. And of course, the churches have been shut down and the houses of worship have all been shut down, but yet demonstrators demonstrating in Trenton, upon which the governor himself did partake in, showed a clear double standard. And we need to use this constitutional right of petition for redress of grievances, and we need to start in New Jersey with it now.
All of the rights of the people are not enumerated in the Bill of Rights. They're not. So, for example, you have a right to breathe. The founders did not think it necessary to put that citizens have a right to breathe. We also have a right to procreate and have children. They didn't think it necessary to put in the Constitution that you have a right to have children. And they also didn't think it necessary to put in there that you have a right to go to work and earn a living. They didn't think that it was necessary to put that in the Constitution. And the Supreme Court of the United States has been very clear in stating that all rights are not enumerated in there. The rights that they put in the Constitution were primarily to protect against corruption, because they went through tremendous oppression and hardship under the British Crown, with the quartering of troops in their homes, eating their food. They went through, imagine if government started putting police officers in our homes and just said, you don't like it, tough. I'm gonna board this cop at your house and nothing you can do about it. Well, that's what was happening to the founders of this country. So when you look at the rights, freedom of speech, freedom to assemble, freedom, or right to instruct, freedom of religion, a lot of that was to protect against corruption. And so those are the rights, but the basic human rights of the people, they didn't think it necessary back then, to enumerate all of the rights. And
that's why the founders created the Ninth Amendment. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. And then, of course, the 10th Amendment follows: the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. Very important there.
Yeah, is it my Tennessee Constitution? I think it's Article 1. I don't have my Constitution right next to me, but I know it off the top of my head. It's Article 1, Section 25. in the sense of martial law or unrestricted power, is what they said, in the sense of unrestricted power, is not granted to the military or others to interfere with the liberty of the citizens. And such power is not granted to any power or any department of the government. So my Constitution expressly prohibits everything that these governors have done across the country. And they couldn't do it in Tennessee, but that's another, they keep getting me more work, JR. But that's another issue that I'm going to address with the Tennessee Supreme Court here very soon, asking them to render opinion, and then I'll take it up to the Supreme Court of the United States and see if they'll hear the case. But honestly, I think our courts and including the Supreme Court of the United States have become corrupted, and that there's just no way to get justice through them. The only way is causing public outrage and getting enough people to no longer acquiesce to the unlawful conduct of government.
And last week, of course, John, we had there were 10 Second Amendment cases before the Supreme Court, all thrown out. Largely, this is due to the political nature of the court led by Justice Roberts. And a couple of those Second Amendment cases came right from New Jersey. One of our members, Mark Cheeseman, had one of the courses that was not granted cert. And many people in the state are very discouraged by all this, but I think that we can be rejuvenated with this idea with using our constitutional right to petition the government for redress of grievances. And I suggest, and I'm going to be tagging and letting others of the Second Amendment community know that we can do this, as well as push back on a lot of the other injustices that have occurred as being implemented or through edict given by our governor.
Here's another reason why this right is oppressed. Is basically the new aristocracy in this country is attorneys and judges. That's the new aristocracy. They make the law, they determine the law. And what they have done in oppressing this right is they said, if you want justice, you have to come to the judicial branch. And that's not true, because we have the right of remonstrance to go to the legislative branch. We don't, this is all, a lot of why all of this has happened is because judges and attorneys want to get paid. If you want justice, you have to pay me money and pay attorney fees and pay court fees if you want justice. That is the fundamental breakdown. And in doing that, the judiciary, which was supposed to be the weakest of the three branches with no power except to decide cases that controversy, now has all the power. Because
yes, no question.
If you go to any legislative house in this country, every single bill is written by an attorney. And those bills are written in intentionally vague language, largely, so that when it gets to the judiciary, they can decide however they want from case to case. And also that it's so vague that our attorneys can argue one way or the other in a case. And so, effectively with the attorneys being in there, we've got one branch of government, between the legislative and judicial houses. And the only way to solve that, in my opinion, is two things have to happen in this country before we can restore justice, before we can restore rights of the people. Two things have to happen. We have to restore the right to petition for redress of grievance by address or remonstrance, and we have to restore objective oversight of the judiciary by the legislative branch. We have to restore the sole power of impeachment to the House. We're supposed to go to the House of Representatives to complain against judges, but they tell us to go to these judicial oversight agencies anyway. And we've got the fox watching the hen house, going to the judiciary for judicial oversight. And we cannot have justice if we don't have fair courts, and you can't have fair courts if you don't have judicial accountability. And you cannot be heard if you don't have the right of remonstrance. And this is the fundamental failure of this republic, is these two violations of our Constitution have been allowed to happen. And if we're going to save this republic, that's the only way. I have looked at this problem in every possible light. I have sought every possible means of justice through the courts, through the legislative houses, through the people, through the media, through law enforcement. And the only way that we're going to do that is we have to restore judicial oversight, and we have to restore the voice and power of the people to petition for redress of grievance by address or remonstrance. If we can't do that, it's game over.
Well, John, I want to thank you so much for leading this great cause, reestablishing the fifth cause of the First Amendment, if you will. It's a monumental task. It's one that's being noticed throughout the country. As you've said, you've been leading this. We're happy, the New Jersey Constitutional Republicans, to be working with you with this. We're going to be talking a lot more about it and implementing it as the people of the citizens of New Jersey need to exercise this right, this First Amendment right. We're going to be doing that. We want to wish you the very best with your candidacy as you're running for state senate as a constitutional Republican in Tennessee. And we're hoping that great results will occur with that coming in November when your election is due. But I want to invite you to come back soon. I'd like for you to continue to help us and to educate and work with us as we restore this fundamental First Amendment right of the right to petition the government for redress of grievances. So thank you very much, John. And I thank all of our audiences out there. And remember that the New Jersey Constitutional Republicans and the Constitutional Republicans in Tennessee believe in liberty and justice for all. Thank you.